Space is awesome. Good morning, Rhoda. It's Thursday, September 6th. As you may know, earlier this year, the Mars Curiosity rover landed successfully, and I got to watch that live. The Curiosity rover is a huge feat in a number of ways, and now that it's on Mars, it's got a lot of things to do. It's got tons of different scientific tools, like lasers that vaporize rocks, cameras, and it's got all kinds of things to study. And it's a scientific vessel. And to people of my generation, that seems like the only possible thing that we could be sending rovers out into space for. But 50 years ago, it wasn't so clear that space was going to be all about science. Following the successful launch of Sputnik 1, tensions between Soviet and American space engineers and governments really made it seem like they were more interested in space for military purposes. You might not know this, but actually the first thought about doing something spectacular on the moon from the American side was not to land a human on the moon, but was to detonate nuclear devices on the moon so that it could be seen from the Earth. There was even like a commission that sat down and figured out what it would take, how much they would have to deploy, how they could get the rockets to the moon to blow them up, and to what extent it would be able to be seen from the Earth. And that is really terrifying to me. That's really scary that that's something we actually considered, was blowing up nukes on the moon. That just seems like a bad idea. But what do we have to thank for space exploration being all about science and not military might? What do we have to thank for that? Basically, the Outer Space Treaty. The Outer Space Treaty was signed in 1967. Its full title is the Treaty on Principles Governing the Activities of States in the Exploration and Use of Outer Space, including the Moon and other celestial bodies. And that's a terrific title, and it tells you basically everything that you need to know. The whole idea of this treaty was to squash the idea of outer space as viable for military use. The exploration of space has taken on this basically purely scientific connotation, where people of my generation and people younger and people older really just assume that we're going to learn things from space. But like I said, that wasn't always the case. And I just really think it's awesome that it is the case. It didn't have to be. We could have nuked the moon, and God knows what would have happened. The idea of having, weapons in space surrounding the planet is not a bad one from a military perspective, but it is a bad one from almost every other perspective. And I personally have read and watched way too much science fiction to believe that that is the end. When we do move into space en masse, we're going to take all of the problems that we have on Earth with us. That's unfortunately just the way things work, but it is a huge step in the right direction. Imagine, Cortez coming to America and not bringing weapons and not waging war. In 100 or 200 years, I really have a lot of faith that this is going to be referred to as, a time of peace in space, when humans were capable of doing horrible things out there and we weren't, because everyone agreed and there was a concerted effort to just explore and understand the universe, rather than populate it with all of the problems that we've always had as a human race. We might not be remembered as hugely prosperous or greatly intelligent from this era, but we might be remembered as having the aim of peace and scientific progress. And that's a distorted view, but that might be the thing that is remembered. And that, to me, is awesome.